panoramic view. This bird has two wings, compassion and wisdom, karuna and prajna. In my perspective, there is no other quality greater than compassion. Compassion is the desire to relieve the suffering of others as well as ourselves. Compassion is an action word. Compassion moves us to take action to relieve suffering. Compassion leads us to relocate a tick that we found crawling on our body instead of flushing it down the toilet. Compassion leads us to give food to a hungry family. Compassion leads us to offer our presence and our deep listening to those who are experiencing emotional suffering. Compassion leads us to chain ourselves to the doors of a bank that funds fossil fuels, or to put our bodies in front of bulldozers trying to build a pipeline. Compassion leads people to risk arrest and serious jail time in order to rescue a chicken or a piglet destined for slaughter from a factory farm. And it was compassion that led Thai's student, Nhat Chi Mai, to burn herself alive in order to try to stop the war in Vietnam. But compassion must be combined with wisdom. If we don't have wisdom, then our acts of compassion may not be so helpful. As Mai mentioned, I have volunteered for many years at a wildlife rehab hospital, and too often we'd receive an animal that was rescued by a compassionate, well-meaning person, but that person had given the animal food that was not good for the animal. So for example, we might receive a bird that's an insectivore, such as a woodpecker or a wren, whose stomachs can only digest insects, and find out that that person was feeding that bird, cow's milk or dog food or something that's really not good for the animal. Without wisdom, the rescuer's compassion could seriously harm the bird. Another example would be that I see that my spouse Charlotte is on the call this morning. If I wanted to lift her spirits with music, but I didn't use wisdom, and I played what lifts my spirits, like the Grateful Dead, for instance, this would not lift her spirits, but would make her suffer even more. So our bird has both the wings of compassion and of wisdom. And in order to fly and soar and lead us to a society where a future is possible. Now I'd like to tell you about another bird. This bird, instead of soaring high above the earth, has her feet planted firmly on the ground. This bird walks with solidity on our Mother Earth and is aware of each step. This bird also has two wings, mindfulness and precepts, samadhi and sila. Mindfulness is the capacity to be aware of what's happening in the present moment. Thai teaches that each one of us has the seed of mindfulness in us, and that the seed of mindfulness is always present. The moment we touch the seed of mindfulness in us, it begins to grow, and we begin to generate the energy of mindfulness in our lives. The more we water the seeds of mindfulness through practice, the more our mindfulness grows. Mindfulness is an energy that helps us to be present, truly present in the here and now. Life is only available in the present moment. If a future is to be possible, we need to be present to life. When we develop the capacity to be nourished by the present moment and generate the energy of mindfulness, then we will also have the capacity to be aware of suffering and injustice in the world, and to take action in order to relieve that suffering. But we are not only in touch with suffering, we are also in touch with the beauty and goodness that is almost always present and available. When we develop the energy of mindfulness, we can touch both the suffering of the world and also the goodness and beauty of the world. In other words, we are fully alive. This can help us so that we do not become overwhelmed with the suffering and injustice of the world, but from that place of mindfulness, to act, to relieve the suffering. The other wing of this bird is precepts, or what our tradition calls the mindfulness trainings. The Buddha said that to practice mindfulness without precepts is like trying to row your boat to the other shore without first untying it from the bank. You might put in a lot of effort, but you're not going to get very far. The 5 mindfulness trainings represent the Buddhist vision for a global spirituality and ethic. They are practical guidelines for everyday living and are the basis for a happy life. They guide our practice and our behavior. It is impossible to practice the precepts without mindfulness. And our mindfulness practice will not go in the right direction without the precepts. These two, mindfulness and precepts, are the 2 wings of this beautiful bird who walks with solidity and kindness on the ground of our Mother Earth. So now we have beheld 2 birds, one with the wings of wisdom and compassion, and the other with wings of mindfulness and precepts. Now I would like to share a little about what helps these birds grow and reach their full potential. Just like birds, when they first emerge from the egg, they become hatchlings, then nestlings, then fledglings, and then grow to adulthood. In the same way, our wisdom and compassion and our mindfulness and practice of the precepts also grow. During the war in Vietnam, when so many villages were being bombed, Tai recalls conversations they had at the monastery. The monastic sisters and brothers had to decide if they were going to stay in the temple and practice mindfulness or go out into the villages to help. They decided, of course, to do both, to go out and relieve the suffering, but to do so with mindfulness. Tai says mindfulness must be engaged. Once there is seeing, there must be acting. Otherwise, what's the use of seeing? Also, in the 14 mindfulness trainings of the Order of Interbeing, the 4th, titled Awareness of Suffering, says we are committed to finding ways, including personal contact and using telephone, electronic, audiovisual, and other means to be with those who suffer so that we can help them transform their suffering into compassion, peace, and joy. Of course, we also include our own suffering in this work. We learn how to be present to our own suffering. We need to do this if we're going to be there to support others who are suffering. So we recognize, accept, and embrace our own suffering, and we learn not to run away from our suffering or try to cover up our suffering with consumption. We also find ways to be with the suffering of others. We can be there for a friend or neighbor going through hard times. We can spend time on the streets with unhoused people. We can watch videos from slaughterhouses or attend a vigil outside a slaughterhouse. We can attend a community meeting on police violence against unarmed Black men and women. We can volunteer at a suicide hotline. We can spend time with people who are incarcerated in jails or prisons. We can watch documentaries. All of these are ways to expose ourselves to different forms of suffering in our community. When we expose ourselves to the suffering of others, we need to pay close attention, of course, to our own capacity and our limits. If we start feeling overwhelmed, we can take a break and go back to our nest. Then we can take flight again towards places or situations of suffering, and then come back to the nest again. This is what I have been doing in my practice, is trying to immerse myself in suffering. I work at the hospital, so I'm meeting people who are suffering every day. And then when I feel myself starting to get overwhelmed, I know I need to start taking some time to nurture myself so I don't become overwhelmed or full of despair. So in this way, by moving towards suffering, and then coming back to ourselves, moving towards suffering, coming back to ourselves, our ability to be with suffering might increase. And we might find that we are able to enter situations of suffering that we would not have been able to tolerate even a few years ago. This is the way of the Bodhisattva. Bodhisattvas are awakened beings who have vowed to go into places of suffering in order to help relieve that suffering. Bodhisattvas can help us to create the kind of world where a future is indeed possible. One of the practices that helps me work with the suffering of the world, the suffering of myself, my family, the people in the hospital, is chanting the name of Avalokitesvara. In our tradition, we have a practice of chanting the name of Avalokitesvara. In Vietnamese, she is known as Botat Quan Thayam. In Chinese, Quan Chien Pu Sa. In Tibetan, Chenrezig, Zik, who has the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. Avalokitesvara is the one who hears the cries of the world and has great limitless compassion and acts. We might think that bodhisattvas are beings that are out there somewhere, in some pure land, in some other realm, but bodhisattvas can be understood as a potential within each one of us. When we water the seeds of compassion within us, then Avalokitesvara will manifest in our being, and we become Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. Chanting the name of Avalokitesvara helps me to water the seeds of compassion and helps my compassion to grow. The compassion of Avalokitesvara is limitless. So when I engage with the suffering of the world through my work as a hospital chaplain or as an activist for animals in the earth, if I can draw on the compassion of Avalokitesvara, I am much less likely to become burned out or experience compassion fatigue, since the actions then come from a deep source of energy, and my energy will hopefully have the substance and nature of compassion. So, dear friends, these are the practices that help me engage with the world. These two birds, one with wings of compassion and wisdom, soaring high in the sky, and the other with wings of mindfulness and the precepts, walking with solidity and gentleness on the earth, both energized and animated by the compassion of the bodhisattvas. These can lead us in a way of life and ways of community and sangha, so that a future is indeed possible for ourselves and all living beings. Thank you.
Now absorb what's been watered. Thank you for the reminder of compassion and wisdom and precepts for mindfulness. Next, I would like to invite Helen. She's our next panelist speaker.
Thank you, dear Sangha, dear Thai. Special thanks to you, Andrew. You've covered such a lot of territory. I can let go of some of my thoughts about how do I include this, this, and this. You have done it. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Thank you. I thought I would say a few big thoughts, and then I would talk a little bit about what this COVID time has created to be a waking up retreat for me, and what this life has found is available. I'll admit right off the bat that this topic threw me because I have been practicing since COVID really settled into me, letting go of thoughts of the future, of not counting on a future. This resonates with the teachings I've received from David Loy and Eco Dharma, Joanna Macy, whom I first really met at Ukiah. Thank you, Joanne, for bringing her so many years ago to that retreat in town. That the great turning, we don't know what the future would be like, but we may not be able to build it the way that we have built in the past. So some of the guiding big thoughts with this sense over the last 2.5 months that a future may, it's inconceivable what this future is, as it has always been, but now it's plainly offered to us. We do not know. Joanna Macy's teaching that I took to heart so many years ago in Ukiah and have continued to learn from is if the world cannot recover from the harm that has been done, whether the world means humankind or however we look at that, I have faith that the earth will survive in one way and another, but that it is we who are the ones, we are the ones who can offer care, who can offer, as Andrew said, the compassion and wisdom to respond to whatever it is that is coming as a result of the accumulation of harm that the earth and humans have been going through. We are the ones who've been training to be with suffering, with calm, with big-heartedness. So that sense of active hope that Joanna Macy talks about, not a hope for a certain outcome, but a quality of hope that, as Brother David Stendal-Ross, who's one of my most beloved teachers, says, hope is the capacity to be surprised. And in my work as a chaplain at a psych center, people who had tried to end their lives, when they had that glimmer of a surprise, maybe in the mindfulness group, they suddenly felt a moment free of suffering. That's the hope that surprises us and on which we can build. So active hope is a very big piece of how I'm finding to respond to our situation. David Loy, you know, that's so classic. As Joanne said in our Dharma sharing group, I worked rather hard on bringing him to Sacramento, hoping he would be available for Northern California Sanghas, especially, and the community. And then we sheltered in place. So we had impermanence. He talks about eco-sattva path and eco-dharma. And what it really means is our practice of living wholeheartedly, giving wholeheartedly as we can, without attachment to the outcome. These words are so easily said, but I think most of us who have worked with Sangha building or who have worked in activist areas, we know we want to succeed, but to be not attached to outcome means that we are instruments of peace, that we are creating peace. Whatever happens, we come from that place of wisdom and compassion, awareness and love. And then whatever happens, happens. And we can keep responding, taking the next step. Recently at my Sangha, I mentioned it's an eclectic Sangha. It's been around for 30 years. We have no teachers, we have no lineage, we include all teachers. And we're peer-led. It's very democratic. And I often long for the shared culture of this tradition. I cannot impose it on my eclectic Sangha, but I think it flows through me to a certain extent in how Sacramento Buddhist Meditation Group has developed. So we had James Baraz from the Vipassana tradition recently with us. Up on my bulletin board right next to this computer, these words of James stir me. We belong to each other and to our ancestors who were rooted in belonging. We have lost our path, many of us, not all. The indigenous societies are giving us an opportunity to learn again what that belonging could look like. And given this time of slowing down, for some of us at least, we are so fortunate to see who we really are. This time of waking up, who we really are. Rather audaciously, James said, the least we can do now is train to see our majesty. All right. The gift of fearlessness. Sister Annabelle wrote in a commentary on Thay's book, For a Future to Be Possible, that Buddhism is clear we can have confidence in our awakened nature. We can have confidence in our awakened nature. We are so used, at least I am, so used to being uncertain. Can I really step up like that? No, let me wash the dishes instead. So what does it mean to really be confident? Confident, how audacious that is. Fearless of our awakened nature. I wanted to look a little bit at my life quickly, what I have done with this time. Seeing as COVID developed that my own future was not going to necessarily be what I had planned and worked out with my children and my family. I found myself often sitting for hours quietly in a kind of shock, I think, initially back in March, realizing that I might not see my children again. I might not hold them again. If I were to get sick, I would not want them to come to the hospital. This is a big, hard thing to take in. So I sat with it. It sat on me. And eventually I was able to have a conversation with my daughter. Acknowledging this, I took a great deal of time because I knew her life was very hard. And we said goodbye to each other. We did it now. I want her to be free if something happened to me, not to feel on my behalf that she had to come or that she would suffer about not being with me. My younger daughter, I was very, very gentle with her as she's much more fragile in some ways, was outraged that I would imagine such a thing as possible, that she could be free of the thought that she had to get there to see me. I tried. I tried to let her know she was free to take care of herself, and that was my wish. In Sangha, some of what this time has meant for me is noticing, oh, we're trying to carry on as we have before. But there's changes. Without bodies, our focus is less in sitting. And I spoke to someone teaching at Spirit Rock, and they said, yes, we're noticing we have to have more guided meditations and shorter times. Oh, not business as usual. I also noticed there was a kind of, vacuum, that kind of oversight wasn't happening for all kinds of good reasons, and I was seeing it, and so it was my work in Sangha building to create some consensus about, let us address how our Sangha can respond to this situation. One very strategic example was to break the job of hosting every Sangha evening into two jobs. A Sangha host who could embody the practice, create the sense of presence that we all need for a sense of refuge, and a tech host who could run with all the disruptions and anxieties of the machinery of Zoom. So that's a very small but concrete example of, oh, maybe this is what would be needed. A sweet thing in my neighborhood, it's a very sweet neighborhood. I've been more involved in gardening, as I gather many people have. I work with a permaculturalist. And more people are stopping to look at the garden. And it dropped into my consciousness. One of Ty's most radical statements that really spoke to me was, our gift is joy. We could do so many protest demonstrations, letters, so many skillful things. But how can we give joy? To give joy is to allow others to be themselves in all their fullness. The gift of joy is freedom, fearlessness. Oh, this little garden that I thought was just for me, other people are stopping and they're marveling at the colors. Oh, that too is a Sangha gift of my Sacramento neighborhood. And another one on that front is Carlin, who is here, has offered to get fresh veggies at the farmer's market for me. This is so hard for me. I go every 6 weeks and stock up on groceries. That's the only place I go into every 6 weeks. And Carlin came along offering fresh things. And I had to really look at that offer and my resistance and participate in the circle of giving and receiving and the joy of giving and receiving. So thank you, Carlin. It was a great teaching you offered. As the world goes along, I'm careful about how much I take in. Although I don't watch any television, but I do stay up to date with The Guardian and Washington Post and Rebecca Solnit and a few others. I made a commitment to do civil disobedience with XR. That was kind of a new step for me. And then we closed down. Postcards are a practice that I'm really enjoying, to do postcards to encourage voter turnout. I was so looking forward to being at Plum Village for the OI retreat and the refund offer. Oh, let me support Plum Village with what I've already paid, but also receive a little bit back that I can give to the causes and campaigns that I believe in. So those are some of the pragmatic ways that this life has allowed me to wake up in the face of grief and joy at almost every moment, this paradox that we live in. And I am so grateful for that and for you. Thank you for listening.
Helen, thank you so much for the talk. You can all feel your deep generosity and your joy as well. I feel like it's lighting us up quite a bit. Thank you. So let's invite a sound of the bell to let that really settle into our body and our consciousness. Dear friends, friend Melanie over here is really aware of that we've been sitting for a while, so let's do a 1 minute stretch break so we can really be kind to our body. Feel free to move and stretch in the way that your body really calls for. you. Next up, I would like to invite Kim. Kim Nguyen.
Dear respected Sangha, dear teachers, friends, my name is Kim Nguyen and I am currently living in Oakland. Thank you so much for being here and for the opportunity to share my thoughts and practice with you. A few days ago, when I received an email from Mai asking the question, what does practice for a future to be possible mean to you? A lot of the things that came up were just questions. And so I just had a lot of questions, even though I actually have this calligraphy that was sent to me as a gift, right by, it says, practice for a future to be possible. And I have it on my desk. And so I think the seeds were there. And at the same time, I had a lot of questions with my questions. And so, and I guess one of my questions is, what are we practicing? And what does practice mean? For most of us, and also for myself, it's really easier to automatically practice forgetfulness. I can, if I want water and I want to get some from my kitchen, I can just walk to the kitchen without thinking about it. And it is more intentional if I am to practice awareness. And so I do have to remember more. And I think for me, as I am practicing in our practice, I am more aware of and putting more intention in my practice. And so I do put this by, I'm working from home currently. And so I do put this right by my desk, my work desk. And I saw this work gatha from Plum Village Happy Farm that I kind of modified a little bit, but I would like to share it now. It says, "This is my field of practice. I vow to work mindfully in each moment, sowing seeds of compassion and understanding, just as a lotus cannot grow without mud. I will find ways to use my suffering in order to nourish my happiness, working in harmony with myself. I know I will also be in harmony with all beings." And so I forget that sometimes when I'm practicing, especially at home. And so this is really something that I look at and really read before I start my day, or in the middle of my day, or just whenever I feel called to read it. Sheltering in place has its ups and downs. I know that a lot of us have already mentioned in our Dharma sharing and from Helen and Andrew that this is a global pandemic. It's all of us, everyone is involved, all of our human friends, all of the, especially our human beings, right? That it has brought out so much, especially yeah, it's just brought out so much. And some of that is, you know, our children are not able to go to school. We're not able to see our loved ones. We're sheltering in place where it feels like we're disconnected from our community. And that's a feeling, right? It has exacerbated all the isms that has existed for so long. And it has increased violence in the Asian American community. I remember talking to my mom when this initially when this first started, and my mom lives in North Carolina, and she tells me, "Daughter, I'm afraid of going to the grocery store because I'm hearing things from New York and all the violence that are happening. And I can't send your brother out. He's younger. I think he's turning 20. He's 19. And so she says, well, I can't send your brother. He's young and he's still a baby. And how would he be able to deal with this if someone were to approach him? So I would do it. I'm going to do the shopping, and I'm going to go and get the needs that our family needs. And so this is it hits home for me. And so and just being an Asian American woman myself, this is close to me. Although I feel fortunate to be surrounded by loving communities and loving people. My immediate families and my friends are so much affected by this. And so that and our healthcare workers are working so hard to just helping and keeping people alive. Our children and communities have, especially those who do not have resources, are suffering. And I have the opportunity to work with the most vulnerable populations in Oakland. And so, so I am witnessing and guiding our children and families in Oakland. And so all of this has really increased our anxiety and stress. And I know that for myself, sometimes it's harder to sleep at night, and it produces anxiety, and in holding my anxiety and holding other people's anxiety. And so and those are, I mean, when Joanne talked about our brain, right? We're using the brain model, that we are actually really using the 10,000-year-old brain during this time, because we're afraid of getting sick, which is a real thing. We're afraid of not seeing our family, which is a real thing. And we're afraid of violence. And all of this is exacerbated from our dorsal brain. And so for myself, I have experienced some of this during the pandemic. Some days are easier and some days are harder. And so how do I practice during this time? I think I am so grateful to have found this practice, not just this time, but earlier, before this, so that I can be prepared right now, I guess. And so how do I notice and hold the anxiety and the stress and the collective suffering and the perceptions that I have of our suffering during this time? I can share a little bit about what I've done. I there are many things that I'm doing, many things that are intentional. And one of it is that Eric and I love to wander in the forest and get lost in the forest of Oakland. And so we love to be in the redwood trees and be around the birds. I live in downtown Oakland, which is a hub in itself, and there's many people regularly, not as much, but we live right by a lake that has a lot of people use to take walks. So we like to leave and be with the trees. Although during this retreat, I found that I'm feeling more connected to the place that I'm living in. Just yeah, like noticing the life and the trees and the flowers in downtown, which is kind of bizarre and not so bizarre. Yeah, and so going for a walk, getting lost, allowing myself to get lost in the woods. I've been, in my work with children, I've been teaching songs. I don't know if Claire is here, but the I'm a Bunny song, it's very popular amongst the kids. Very cute, they love it. And during this practice of giving these songs or playing games or using expressive arts or drawing, poetry, painting, all of this actually helps with our new brain, which Joanne mentioned. It's our frontal brain, right? And these are ways that I am holding my 10,000 years old brain. And so I've been meditating a lot. It's actually really an opportunity to practice for me as well. An opportunity to hold all of the things that are arising, opportunities for me to dive deeper into building a Sangha and being there for Sangha and practicing with Sangha and allowing Sangha to also hold me as you are right now. And in terms of just my family, I've been connected with my sisters. I mean, I have a 6-month-old nephew, and so I miss him that I am not able to see him, although we have been video chatting. He's not really chatting, but there's just something about seeing a baby and like hearing a baby's giggles or laughters that just also helps with my newer brain. Other things that I've been doing, I have also been connecting. Eric and I have also been connecting with our friends who do not practice in the Plum Village tradition through games. And so that some games, the game on an app, it's called House Party. If anyone is interested, it's a free app that you can connect with people and you can download it and you can video chat with them while like drawing using like Pictionaries or playing like games similar to Apples to Apples. So those are all things that I'm realizing has helped with connection using my newer brain. And lastly, I think I have also been taking care of myself, taking care of my health. I know that physical distancing is very important right now to protect myself and as well as to protect others when I am out, when I need to be out. And so I've realized that in order to continue the practice, in order to give generously, I have to take care of this body. And so Eric has he's practiced martial art for a long time. So he's kind of guiding me through doing sit-ups and modified push-ups and a lot of fun exercises. Yeah, and so during this time, I'm continually finding creative ways to take care of myself so that I can take care of others. So I don't know what the future holds. I know that I can only take care of this moment. And I know that, and I think in the past, when I've tried to plan for the future, sometimes, a lot of the times actually, it doesn't go to my liking. There's something else that is happening that I am not able to control. And sometimes, a lot of the times, it turns out to be way better than what I've planned. So I know that, so I don't know what the future will hold, but I know that if I'm able to take care of today and in this moment and relying and practicing with sanghas, then I know that I'm also taking care of the future. And I just want to leave a quote that I was reminded in the Tao Ching today that I heard this morning, that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So that's all I have. Thank you so much. Happy stepping.
Thank you so much, Kim, for all the creative ways and that you are nursing yourself and others in the community. I'm really glad to hear that you're in good health and you both find very fun and creative ways that inspires everyone else as well. So let us invite Abel, and then before we invite the last speaker, let's just show yoga.
Good morning, dear Thai, dear Sangha. I could not hear if Miley asked me to start or not, but I see my face on the screen, so I'm gonna go ahead and bow in. And may I first invite us to just listen to a sound of the bell and chant Namo Bồ Tát Quán Thế Âm, which Andrew mentioned. That is a compassionate bodhisattva, just 3 times. So listen to the sounds of the bell and bring yourself back to this present moment. Namo Bồ Tát Quan Thế Âm. Namo Bồ Tát Quan Thế Âm. Namo Bồ Tát Quan Thế Âm. Good morning, dear Thai, dear beloved Sangha. Thank you for including me into this panel, and thank you, Kim, Helen, and Andrew, for your lovely sharing. I just want to capture a few key points before I start mine. Kim, I don't know what the future holds. I just know what to do in the moment. Awesome message. Helen, your key thing, that the word confidence, that ring a bell in me. And Andrew, all of your birds example of the two wings brought me back to Sister Dang Yim sharing at the Google event about the wisdom and compassion. And then you add mindfulness and precepts. All these are beautiful, beautiful. I just love it. Thank you very much, Mai, for coordinating this. Sugar Plum Sangha for coordinating this and recording this. When Mai told me that the theme will be for a future to be possible, I said, oh, that's a book from Thai about the precepts, Buddhist ethics for everyday life. I think that is a very wise decision to go with this, especially at this time in place. So I thought about, it is so vast, right? On the practice of the precepts or the 5 mindfulness trainings in our Thich Nhat Hanh tradition, I've been practicing this and I want to invite you to be this way. Be compassionate and do the best we can. That's the message. Be compassionate. So what are they? How do we do this? When and where? I think we all know a lot about this. We all practicing this. You all here because you are on the right path. We are all lucky to get the path, the teaching from the Buddha time through our dear teachers, including Thich Nhat Hanh is our main teacher in our main tradition, right? Of course, we all learn from so many places, like Helen mentioned, Spirit Rock. I also learned from multiple teachers, but the key thing that I want to mention about precepts is that Thich Nhat Hanh, in this book, Sister Chen Khong said, in a sense of do your best. We cannot be perfect about following the 5 mindfulness trainings, the 5 precepts from the Buddha's time. I want to walk us back to the previous time. The Buddha's time was just 5 simple things. And if you look at the old sheets, you cannot see this. The old sheets of Thich Nhat Hanh 5 mindfulness training books. The first one is do not kill. The second one is do not steal. The third one is do not have sexual misconduct. The fourth one is do not lie. And the fifth one is do not consume toxin. Simple as that. Thai is wise knowing that in our tradition, we have to say, be aware, right? Be aware when you kill, be aware when you steal, be aware when you have sexual misconduct, be aware when you lie, be aware when you consume all different things. But now Thai spread it out to meet with our current environment. I think you all probably know that already. If you don't know, please look at the book For a Future to Be Possible to get the whole thing, or go to plumvillage.org and you got the whole concept on it. I want to focus on be compassionate. I remember Sister Chen Khong said, all of this practice of 5 mindfulness training is to grow our compassion. So please just go ahead and take your hands and touch your hearts. Breathe. Deeper, expand your stomach a little bit and let it go. And then focus on your hands, on your heart. Feel compassion in your heart. Grow our compassion. A center of our heart here in Qigong or Tai Chi or yoga, we call it the heart center. It grows compassion. Once in a while, when you feel like you need to grow your compassion, physically touch your compassionate heart. Connect that with the compassionate energy of Avalokiteshvara, Kuan Yin, Kuan the being, the bodhisattva that vow to help others by listening to the cries of others. So we need to listen to also the cry of ourselves, right? You can put your hands down if you want, or you can just leave your hands on your heart if you want. We need to care for ourselves to care for others. So then we don't get exhausted from, they call it what? Compassion, distress, or compassion kind of mean overdue, okay? If you just give and give and give and don't keep anything for yourself, you cannot keep going and keep giving. Thai also taught that. The how to me, it started out with Thai's calligraphy, breathe and smile. And I love acronym. So we all know PBS, right? Is that public broadcast station? No. It's pause. Pause with the bells. Pause with the sign on the street to stop, with the yellow light and then the red light. Pause, breathe, and smile. PBS. Care for ourselves. Care stands for compassion, appreciation, respect, and equanimity. I just feel that we have all the teachings of the Buddha are so huge, so great, from 4 immeasurable minds. Feel loving kindness in us, feel compassion in us. Helen mentioned joy. Feel the joy in us. Even in this hard time, what can you do to have more compassion, more loving kindness, more joy, more interconnectedness with others? Kim mentioned all ways that she connect with others. Andrew connect with his nature in Santa Cruz area. I love that. In this period, Jim, my husband, and I get to walk every day in our neighborhood that has full oak trees, all kinds of trees, bay trees. And the oak tree in our neighborhood, at night, I see like 30 turkeys fly to the tree to live up there at night. When I see them fly, I felt so much freedom. Freedom is the ultimate goal we all live by. But we have to live by it in the present moment, right? We cannot go to the future. Lao Tzu said, similar to the Buddha, really, when we feel anxious because we think about the future, when we feel regret because we think about the past, the only time you can feel peace is when we can stay in the present moment. Plum Village Thầy Nhất Hạnh book, The Plum Village Chanting of the Heart, show us all these sutras dwell in the present moment. In this hard time, I think we need to do multiple things to be in the present moment to the best we can. One of the monks, he passed away now. He was the abbot at Kim Quang Pagoda in Sacramento. When he shared with Jim and me, when we asked him, how can we practice? He said, do your best. That still rings a big bell in my ears. Do my best. Whatever it is, for me, for you, do your best. Lynn Fine and I the other day talked when we share about how we practice, and Lynn come up with this acronym. I love acronyms, so I'm going to share this with you. Maybe it'll ring the bell in your mind and you can remember. BBC is not the broadcast station from England, okay? First B is for breathing, right? We all have to return to the breathing to get the mindfulness wing that Andrew talked about. To get the compassion, the wisdom, the solidity through the 5 precepts. Breathe, breathe, we are alive. Another thing I know that we as human beings, we create all kinds of karma, not so good one. We cannot repent them all. But I learned one way since I was young as a child in the Buddhist tradition. We go to pagoda, we prostrate, bow. So every day I would bow at least 20 times to all different names of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, connect me, my compassionate energy with them. Get more from them. They need to support me more. I cannot do it all by myself. So I'm calling to all of these beings that align to help me. C stand for chanting. I don't know about you, but for me, because I raised in the Buddhist tradition when I was young, I chant, then I feel peace. I still remember, I want to say only quickly, because I see that we're only about 6 minutes before 10:30. This was a sad story. But thanks to the practice, I healed. In 1981, at the end of March, I got a call from my younger brother, now who's the youngest, that my 2 youngest brothers got in a car accident. A drunk driver plowed into them. At 6 p.m., right here in Fremont, their car burst into flame. One, we don't know what's the news, one in a hospital ICU. I went crazy. I cried, I screamed, I knew that was bad news. One, we don't know where that is, that means it was not with us. But I was still hoping. One in 90% burn. I cried and hollered for about maybe 20 minutes, half an hour. Then I remember my little shrine in the corner of my house in El Cerrito. I went there, I chanted the Buddha's sutras, one of the sutras about sharing peace, safety. After half an hour chanting, I came out peaceful. Jim was so surprised, but he knew then that's the power of the chanting. Chanting is my daily practice. Breathing, of course, is all of our daily practice, right? We all breathe to be alive. But with the mindfulness breathing, we have more energy. In conclusion, my dear friend, I want to read you this from For a Future Possible, listed Nourishing Happiness, also from the Plum Village Chanting. Sitting here in this moment, protecting by the Sangha, my happiness is clear and alive. What a great fortune to have been born a human, to encounter the Dharma, to be in harmony with others, and to water the mind of love in this beautiful garden of practice. A bell. Although there are birth, sickness, old age, and death, now that I have a path of practice, I have nothing more to fear. It is great happiness to be alive in the Sangha, with the practice of mindfulness trainings and concentration, to live every moment in stability and freedom, to take part in the world of relieving others from suffering. Dear Sangha, we're here together to practice, to give love, to give joy, to give peace, to give happiness to the world. I would like to wish you all, may you be happy, healthy, peaceful, prosperous in all areas of your life, safe and free. Namo Avalokiteshvara.
Thank you so much, good job. We all can feel the strength of your dedication and your practice and the effort that you make in your daily life and spreading that to everyone else. So I felt so lucky to hear your teachings and also kind of really resonating with the part about the chanting as well. Because I felt in the morning here when we have the practice every day in the sit, we always have 15 minutes of reading the sutra and chanting, and that really brings like alive the aspiration every day of like watering all those good seeds in me. Because sometimes during the day I might forget that I have these aspirations to be kind, to be more loving in my speech. But like in the morning, just like that moment of stillness, being together, sitting together and chanting, and to read the sutra, to really rekindle that every day. And it's so important. So thank you for sharing that teaching with us. Now it's 10:29. We have one more moment, one more minute before it ends. So maybe I'd like to invite the song to kind of really moving us, the energy, the absorption, to really let it moving around in whatever ways that will benefit us.
We're on a journey.
Yeah, on a journey.
We're all moving on a journey to nowhere, taking it easy, taking it slow. No more worries, no need to hurry, nothing to carry. Let it all go. We're all moving on a journey to nowhere, taking it easy, taking it slow. No more worries, no need to hurry, nothing to carry. Let it all go. Let it all go. Let it all go.
Percy is the manifestation of letting it all go.
Well, thank you, dear friends. I think we'd like to maybe give 5 or 10 minutes of a bit of a break for us to stand and stretch and maybe take a bio break, get a drink of water, and then we'll come back, let's say at 10:40. we'll have our closing circle. And we'll just leave the video going, but maybe Mai, can you give us one large bell to close and then a small bell to stand and bow to each other?
Thank you so much for all the panelists. See you in the
Okay, all. Goodbye.
Oh, stay. We will have the video chat on, so you can just come back around 10:40. Thank you.